This is a Defocus Media production.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. All right, we are live. Greetings, colleagues. It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover, back at you with another amazing show today. I have a guest that is known all across the eye care industry for just his knowledge. I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge, and it feels good to have him back on the show because he actually hung out with us in the past in regards to another book that he wrote about, a book that he's published in the past. And today we're going to talk about something new that he's putting out there in the air for us. Friends and family, I'd like to welcome our colleague, Dr. Steve Vargo. Steve, how are you doing today, sir?
Great, Daryl, and it's great to be back with you, and thanks so much for having me back. And I know we're going to talk about some areas around change today, and I just want to take a moment before we get started just to express my own appreciation for what you're doing as well. I know you're on your own mission for change, and you and Dr. Adam Ramsey and others as well. So that's not going unnoticed, and just wanted to just express my appreciation for what you're doing more on a social justice issue and all your work with that.
Oh, man, I greatly appreciate it. You know, Dr. Adam Ramsey and I and the Black Eye Care Perspective Group is really trying to make a change. And I'm very thankful for the industry in general because everyone is listening. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes that have not come to the surface yet. And I could just say that I am very proud with some of our leaders in the eye care industry. I mean, we are really now seeing who is truly a leader in this industry. And some things that will come to surface over the next couple of weeks will really change the game and really change the industry. And I can't wait to share the exciting news.
Yeah, awesome. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah, thanks. Well, let's talk a little bit more about you, man. What's new? What's been going on? It's been probably about a year since you were on the show last. I mean, what's going on with your life, with business? I mean, I know who you are. Some folks may not know who you are. So if you don't mind just giving us an overview of who you are and some of the things that's been taking place since last time you were on the show.
Sure. Yeah. So my career has taken a few interesting paths along the way. I practiced optometry for several years in the Chicago area, and then discovered somewhere along the way that I really liked the business of eye care, probably more even than the clinical. And my career path kind of followed in that direction. So I became a full-time consultant at some point. I stopped seeing patients. It's about 5 years ago with a group called Prima Eye Group. And we were eventually became iDoc, and that's who I work for now. So it's been really rewarding. I get to work with a lot of independent practices and help them on areas of their practice that, you know, we're not trained to do that in school. We don't get that business training. So, you know, I both had the privilege of working with them to help them improve, but also learned a ton. I mean, just being able to work with so many different practices and learn from them what they're doing and being able to share that with others. So our world got turned upside down in the consulting realm, just like yours did in the clinical realm over this past year. So we kind of switched from practice management mode into how do we help our doctors get through this and just survive the whole pandemic. So that's what I've been up to in terms of my work. And now we're kind of starting to see, I guess, on an optimistic note, the attention switch back toward re-entering into practice. And so somewhere along that way, I managed to squeeze in a book, and so it ties in nice. I actually put off the release date because it just didn't seem right a month or two ago. So I've been kind of sitting on the release date for a while, and I thought, you know what, this seems about right. It comes out tomorrow on Amazon, and I think it ties in well with where we're at in the industry in terms of change, in terms of as we re-enter the workplace, really what needs to change, both in terms of our, how do we better serve our patients, and how can we be more impactful with them to actually get them to change things that would otherwise benefit their vision, health, or quality of life.
Yeah. And, for those that may not be aware of your work, if you don't mind just elaborating on, some of your past work. I mean, you've written a couple of books. If you don't mind just touching on the titles and just a brief overview of what those books were really about.
Sure. So, I realized early on in this consulting world that the staff management issue was pretty universal in terms of the challenges there. And working with other practices on the consulting side, it's an area that would come up over and over, and it's hard to squeeze that into if I was just talking to somebody on a conference call or let's say a 30-minute or 60-minute consultation. So I wanted to create something that I could pass on to them. So I just started writing different things that I had learned in terms of staff management, and it eventually became, it kind of grew into a story. And I just looked at it one day, I'm like, I think I have a book here somehow. And so that first one ended up becoming a book. I just started out writing what was going to be a guide I could give to people. So that was called Eye on Management. Really came to appreciate the ability of, what I'm a student of, trying to always better understand what makes some practices stand out and prosper where others don't, and really came to appreciate the value of good leadership in a practice. And also better understand that when that's not there, how many things fall through the cracks and how much of a struggle it can be for that practice. So my second book was called Eye on Leadership. And then my last one, I really leaned into the concept of selling without feeling salesy. I called it But I Don't Sell. And I really leaned into my own little nerdy fascination in human psychology, which there's a lot in this new book as well. But how do we better connect with people? So, we are in an industry that sells things, whether we, distance ourselves from that or we're comfortable with it. There's a whole spectrum of what, how people feel about that. But nonetheless, as it stands right now, optometry practices depend on the sale of products and services. How do we do that in a way that doesn't seem threatening to ODs, that doesn't seem uncomfortable? So I really tried to better kind of address that topic in the last one. This next one really takes that kind of to the next level.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity of actually bringing you on the show to discuss that last book, and we definitely see eye to eye when it comes to that. I always tell folks, don't be ashamed that we have a retail aspect of optometry. I mean, that's a gift. It's a beautiful thing. We were blessed with having the medical aspect and the retail aspect. We're able to prescribe from the chair and be able to cater to both. I mean, what other profession out there can do that?
Right, exactly.
Take full advantage of it and be able to help our patients more than any other profession can out there. So I'm all about what I like to call indirect selling, but really just solving a problem, finding a solution for a patient or a person that's in your office,
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really all it is. It's, the ability to do that without it feeling uncomfortable, a lot of times it comes down to intent. Some of the best salespeople I've seen, even opticians, I think we can comfortably, put them in a sales category. Some of the best ones I've seen really don't view themselves as salespeople. They just are, they really enjoy helping other people get what they need.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into, why you're on the show today. You're releasing a new book, as you had mentioned earlier, Prescribing Change, How to Make Connections, Influence Decisions, and Get Patients to Buy into Change. Let's talk about that. Why the title? Why now?
So it was one thing I've come to realize is the struggle with so many practices in taking their practice to that next level. So what we're seeing now is this transition where a lot of independent practices especially are having to figure out, how do we compete in this environment of online sales, of retail? Can we continue to thrive and prosper if we're extremely heavily leveraged on the sale of glasses and contact lenses? Now, I don't think that's going anywhere. I'm not, trying to take things to the other extreme, but we are seeing more trends toward doctors trying to differentiate themselves through specialized service, specialized products, technology, but still struggling to make that a marketable, profitable part of their practice. So what I wanted to better understand is, how do we actually get people to change? When someone walks into the practice, we don't have a lot of time, but if you want them to better understand a product, a service, if there's some action you want them to take, it could be, and getting them to change can involve a change in mindset, a change in behavior, a change in how someone prioritizes their health and vision. So what I wanted to do is give doctors the tools and resources to be more effective at that. Because what I see a lot of times is an over dependence on information. And what I mean by that is doctors saying, well, I educate the patient, but they don't do what I'm asking them to do. They don't do what I want them to do. And the book gets a lot more into the psychology of that, but information alone can be surprisingly ineffective in getting people to change. So I'm not a behavioral psychologist, so I really studied it and researched it and looked at the experts and the research and how do you get people to change in ways that benefit them. So that's really the premise of the book.
Gotcha. Well, what I would like to do next is just kind of go through each chapter and just break down, a brief overview of what the chapters are about, because we want you guys to purchase the book and read it and also share it with your team members. That way we're all on the same page and we can make optometry a great profession. But let's take it from the top. The science of decision making. I know, again, you touched on earlier that you're really looking at more of the human behavioral science aspect of this book. If you don't mind, just giving us a brief overview of this chapter.
Yeah. If there's one thing that you could take away, if there's one thing people could better understand, it would be this. It's that we make almost all of our decisions from a part of the brain more responsible for feelings and emotion. Now, we tend to do things in reverse in terms of how we present, how we talk to patients. We talk to the part of the brain responsible for ration and logic. So our brains have adapted and developed in a certain way, and it's really for efficiency that we depend much more. We don't put a lot of conscious thought into the overwhelming majority of our decisions. And if you think about it, Daryl, if you had some deep logical analysis of every little decision you had to make, you'd never get anything done. Everything from what you're going to eat to breakfast to what you're going to wear to work. This was actually demonstrated in patients who had traumatic brain injuries to the part of the brain responsible for feelings, and they literally could not make decisions without someone else coming to them and saying, Daryl, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to eat for lunch. Here's how you're going to schedule that appointment. So when you understand that, it helps you better understand how we need to connect with people. And so I wanted people to understand that science and what parts of the brain are responsible for actions and decisions, because that's basically the part of the brain we need to talk to. And I go into the other chapters. How do we do that? Because it's that part of the brain that will actually send a message out to the neocortex. We're talking about the limbic system mostly, where our decisions come from. That once that part of the brain has made a decision, which in most cases comes without our conscious thought, it actually sends a message out to the neocortex, which is the logical, rational side of the brain, saying, yes, let's go forward with this. Let's get that pair of sunglasses. Right. It moves forward, or actually it sends the message to the conscious thinking part of the brain to move forward. So it gets more into that throughout the book, but I think it's really important that people understand that.
Gotcha. And, in order for people to really understand this, you really have to be able to connect. And I love this connect method that you have, this acronym. If you don't mind just breaking down what that actually stands for, and let's just dive into that, because I know that's each chapter has a meaning behind that. So let's talk about that, Steve.
Sure, yeah. So I'll go through briefly and feel free to jump in and any point you have questions or anything. So yeah, I wanted to come up with an easy to follow and remember acronym on the different areas that you'd want to focus on with patients. And the CONNECT stands for, the C is the curiosity is caring. And for my ability to connect with somebody else, I really first have to get curious about them. And I think that's a part we skip over real quick. As doctors, as opticians, as other peripheral staff, we don't ask a lot of questions. We don't really take the time to learn about the patient and their deeper needs. And if I don't understand that, if I just come to you as Dr. Vargo and say, Daryl, I've asked you just a couple questions and this is what I think you need, and we're not on the same page, there's no connection there. And psychologically, you'll actually back away. Maybe not physically, but you'll actually, there will be this wall between us. So I'm here giving you my recommendations, and you're nodding your head because, I've got a lab coat and some degrees behind me. You're not going to argue with me, but at the same time, there's no connection there.
And I think that's key. In the past, we've had conversations, and I told you in the past, I have this, what I call the 2-minute drill, where when I walk into the exam room, I don't discuss anything eye care related. I talk to the patient. I talk to the person. I talk to my mother, father, sister, brother, best friend, whatever it may be. That's who's sitting in front of me. Even though they have a different name and I might not know them at all, I make that connection. I show them that I care, right? And within that 2 minutes, I can pull out so much information. I mean, by the time that conversation is done, I know all the gossip going on at their office and everything about their children and what they want to do for the remainder of their life and all types of stuff. And being able to break down that wall, that barrier, it allows that patient to understand that I actually do care and that I'm invested in them and that they're going to get all my attention for the next 15, 20 minutes that they're in front of me.
Right, and that's key. The patient understanding that our focus is on them and not us, and that gets into the whole area of them trusting us. And I love the 2 minutes. There's research out. There was a study done that shows that doctors on average interrupt the patient within 11 seconds of the patient talking. 11 seconds, and they redid it because that might sound like a short time to you. And they redid the study, and it came out 15 seconds. So I'm sure some really magical things happen in that additional 4 seconds. I don't think we're listening to people. I don't think we're listening. I think we're getting some quick, superficial information, and then we're diving in with what we think is best for the patient, and then we're shocked at the end when they go out to the optical or even to us that they're not on board. The second chapter is ouch, where does it hurt? That's the O, which really helps better explain an actionable way to kind of what I like to call peel back the layers.
Okay.
So we explained initially that part of the brain that's responsible for decision making. So if you think of the brain like an onion, and we're kind of peeling back the layers to get down to that limbic system that really we're trying to understand what's important to them on that feeling and emotional level. So I give examples in the book, but basically layer 1 is thoughts, facts, and details, where we're just trying to get that superficial information. You know, how long have you worn glasses? Do you wear contact lenses? Most of the time, that's where we stop. We haven't really uncovered anything. We haven't really got down to those parts of the brain responsible for decision making. So layer 2, once we've got that, is getting the patient to assess and explain the information they gave you from the layer 1 questions. Now we're digging a little bit deeper. Layer 3 is actually, and I pulled this from the realm of selling, actually. I do make some analogies with selling, not so much in the traditional sense of selling, but what I like to call non-sales selling. One thing about good salespeople, like we talked about before, their focus is on you and helping you. So layer 3 is getting down to people's true desire for gain and fear of loss. So once we better understand the information, the thoughts, facts, and details, and we've got them to assess and explain their situation, then we're asking questions like, what effect would this have for you at work if we were able to remove this problem? You're getting down to people's deeper concerns, their emotional reasons for wanting to make a change. So that's a way to get down to that. That's ouch, where it hurts. We're trying to find out really what are the main needs and wants of the patient.
Now, Steve, question for
go ahead.
you. We get it, we understand it, right? But not everyone understands. I mean, do you think this is something that some people are just born with, and then some people just will never understand it and never get it? And of course, that's going to impact our patients in our chairs. But I feel like this is common sense stuff to me, but to my brother or my sister to the side of me, I don't know how they practice, but I know they're not practicing in that same mentality, because I get a lot of those patients coming over to me and they're saying, Dr. Glover, you actually listen to me. So I mean, like, do you think we're fighting for this? Is this something that people will actually accept and that they can understand, or do you think this is just a lost cause? Because I mean,
I definitely don't think it's a lost cause, which is part of the reason I wrote the book. I wanted to understand it better myself. I didn't go into this as an expert on this area, but I wanted to better understand it myself, so I could connect better with people. But I also think that it's something that can be learned. I think some people might get this. Some people might just have discovered on their own what's more effective in getting people to actually to change, right? That's what we're talking about. But other people really struggle with this, and they're doing it in a way that's not really connecting with people. In other words, when I get down to that ouch, where it hurts, let's say your main struggle is, you work on a computer all day, and by the end of the day, you're getting headaches. And it's affecting your mood. It's affecting you're snapping at your kids when you're going home. It's really impacting your lifestyle. If I'm just talking to you now about the technical upgrade, the technical aspects of a certain type of lens, I'm talking to that logical side of the brain, remember? And that's the part of the brain responsible for skepticism and judgment, keep in mind. But when I can connect with you on a way that says, how would your life improve if we could treat those headaches and you didn't have to deal with that? that literally lights up the part of the brain that we're talking about that's responds to desire for gain and fear of loss. So it's not just my opinion. This is actually smart people with a lot of letters behind their name that hook people's heads up to all kinds of, and actually found out that there's ways to light up the parts of the brain responsible for taking action and making decisions. But we've got to be able to get to those, to interact with people at that level. So it can be taught. There's just, and most of what I'm put forward in this book is nothing that can't be implemented into any practice.
Well, I mean, let's take it a step before that. I mean, this is something that should be in school, right? I mean, we get all this great education to be able to diagnose different systemic conditions, diseases, whether it's, ocular or whatever it may be. But if we don't have this basic part to be able to go out in the world, we're not going to serve our patients any justice, because we have to be able to connect with them. We have to be able to understand the problems that they have. We have to be able to find a solution to solve that problem. And I really do feel like with optometry, and I'm in agreement with you that is a big disconnect, and we have to do a better job. So I feel like in the school systems, we should definitely look at making this mandatory in order to really grow our profession. Because if we don't make that connection now, especially with disruptive technology out there and taking more of the doctor out of the conversation, that's we're going to lose. So we really have to be able to put all these pieces together. And be able to use some of this disruptive technology and be able to use this doctor-patient interaction to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. It's just our ability to serve people. That's really where my interest is if at the end of all of this, are people going to do what you're asking them to do? Mm-hmm. And in our case, I mean, most of the times we're asking someone to do something, recommending, prescribing, whatever words you want to use, it's in their best interest. We're trying to improve something. We're trying to get them, in most cases, to change in a way. Now, that can mean anything. It could mean a change on your prescription. It could mean change in a way that you better understand the need to take nutritional supplements. It could mean change in a way that I need you to come back for some additional testing, or you've got some new technology or scleral contacts, whatever it is. But something about a habit, a mindset, how you prioritize vision. We need to get better at getting people to change, not just giving them information and they nod their heads and go on their way and nothing changes. This is the problem. Doctors educate people all the time, and we continue to smoke and drink and eat too much and not exercise and do all these bad things. Information alone really isn't that effective at changing people. So it's really where I start this off at. The same thing we're talking about, making that early connection and using questions and curiosity really to not only satisfy our own interest, but get the patient to understand that we're really interested in them.
Gotcha. Now, no involvement, no commitment.
That's probably one of my favorite chapters, because that will, I think that is going to really challenge a lot of doctors' theory on practicing and how they interact with patients. I think for the most part, there's a power disparity in the typical healthcare scenario with a doctor, where basically the doctor asks a couple questions and the doctor has all the power and tells the patient what to do. Medicine was founded, over 100 years ago, longer, in a different sort of, it was more episodic, it was more acute care, it was damage control, right? We live in an era now where people have a lot of access to information. And
that's it.
That's it right there. That's it. And they don't need us. As hard as it is to hear this, they don't need us as much. What they want is not damage control. What they want is a partner in their healthcare, and someone who cares about them, and they're looking for partnership. And the results you will get when, and I go into much more of the science and the research behind this in situations where patients are involved in their care. Instead of the doctor dictating the care to them, where patients are actually feel like they have a sense of control and a sense of involvement in their care, you start seeing compliance go way up. You start seeing healthcare outcomes go way up. Malpractice suits decline. And they went into all the research in cancer centers and other institutions and found that when the culture was one of letting the patient be involved in their care, making them a partner in their care, the results were significantly better. So So I go into a lot of that. How do we involve people, make them feel like they're a part of their care, and the commitment aspect as well, in getting people more committed to their care. And some of that involves pausing every once in a while to say, Daryl, are you on board with what I'm saying? Do you understand? Do you have any questions? Does this sound good to you? Is this something that you think you'll commit to? Can I count on you to do this? And we're going to check up again next month. I'm looking for your I'm giving you involvement. If there's a problem, please let me know now, because we can talk about it some more. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe it's something you're just not going to do. That's okay too. Let's have that discussion. But also we lean a little bit more into accountability and commitment, where we're a team together, but I need your commitment. And there's a whole science behind that in terms of when someone makes a commitment to something, a verbal, especially a public commitment to somebody else, they're much more likely to follow through with it.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, just hearing that, it's all about, giving the patient ownership. I mean, it is their life. It is their eyes. They should have ownership. And just like with any business, if I tell you I'm going to give you X amount of percent of ownership, and it's a decent amount, you're going to work harder than if I don't. So it is important for us to be able to partner and let our patients know that they have complete ownership of everything. We're just here to partner and help them out to take it to the next level, and that I'm going to stay committed, just like you need to stay committed in order to take it to the next level for your eye care and healthcare overall. So I love that. I love that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't have to do what we want them to do.
Right.
And there is times we need to be direct, but there's a lot of things we do, especially in eye care, where they just don't have to do what we want them to do. Maybe we want them to switch to a different contact lens modality, or we've got a new technology or a new service that we're promoting within the practice. They don't have to do it. So we need to get them to better understand the value of it, but also make them feel like they're involved in what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's no time like Showtime. I love this title of this chapter. Let's talk about this, Steve.
So I took that from an office I visited a long time ago, and when I went in and we met for some business related reasons, and I was just really impressed with this office and the culture he built, and it was a very successful practice. So at the end of the meeting, walking out, I turned around and I said, "So what would you say is your secret to success?" And he said, "You see that door over there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Every time someone walks through that door, it's showtime." So he took the Disney philosophy that when somebody walks into his office, that they're on stage and his staff is on stage and they're there to serve and meet everyone's needs. So that's where the title came from, and really tying back into that psychological aspect as well. Again, I keep bringing things back to that decision-making part of the brain. It's the psychologically, it's the part we need to connect with. What is the language of that brain? If you want to be able to connect with that. So I go more into that, but there's things, visuals. The optic nerve is a direct connection to that part of the brain. If you think about it, how much more you're likely to respond to something from a feeling standpoint, recall something when there's a visual of it. Our brains are not word processors. We try to make it that way, but our brains are image processors. So what I'd love to see doctors more during the presentation phase, because that's really what this chapter is about. How do you make a demonstration? If you want someone to do something that not only connects with them, but gets them to understand it so they're willing to take action on it. So things like visuals, keeping it really simple. The neocortex, that's the logical side of the brain, very smart, very analytical. The limbic system is not at all. It's kind of stupid, and it's there to serve our own self-interest. So keeping your message simple. That's why every time I hear a doctor go, "Well, I spend a lot of time educating. I keep my patients here a long time because I want to make sure they're thoroughly educated." And I'm never going to tell anyone there's anything wrong with that. But a lot of times those same doctors will say in many cases, it's all for nothing, where people don't do what you want them to do. So I'm not suggesting you oversimplify your message. I'm just suggesting you make it more compact, because again, we're talking with that part of the brain. Contrast is really important. If I'm just telling you that this lens is the best lens we have, the limbic system, that part of the brain, does not know what that means. If you present contrast, if you present two competing options, then that emotional side of the brain can see that which one is better. It has to understand. We do that with refractions every day, right? Yeah. We tell people which is better, one or two. What happens when the choice is really obvious? If people love that. They light up. Oh, it's number one. It's real easy to answer that. What happens when the choices start to look similar? People get really unsure of themselves and really non-committal, right? Which is better, one or two? That long pause, they want you to repeat it again. They're afraid to give you an answer. That's what happens when there's no contrast there. So that's perfect for refractions, right? That's just what we want. But it's really bad for getting people to change something or buy, if we're trying to, out in the optical, you're trying to get people to maybe buy glasses or buy a backup pair of glasses or whatever it is we want them to do when they can't see contrast. So I go into some more examples, but those are just a few ways to really make a demonstration that gets people to fully understand what it is that you're asking them, prescribing, recommending them to do.
Yeah, and I love that whole thing of Showtime, because for me, that's how I am in my office. For me, it's all about creating the ultimate experience. And one of the pieces of creating that ultimate experience really ties into what you just touched on. When I'm in the office, I practice what I preach. If I'm talking to a patient about computer glasses, it's because I'm wearing computer glasses. And I tell them that I'm wearing computer glasses. I tell every doctor that I train, you should be wearing glasses in the office. I don't care if you're wearing contacts or not. Wear computer glasses over your contacts. So when you're talking to your patient, you can say, I am wearing dailies because studies have shown that if you're in front of the computer for a couple of hours, you can reduce your blink rate by half. That's going to dry your eyes out, so you need a lens with more moisture. But on top of that, I'm wearing computer glasses to help reduce blue light issues, glare issues, to relax my eyes and to give me a little more help with my accommodation system. And when I'm telling these patients that, and I may use a trial lens to show them that, they understand it, they get it, because I'm practicing what I'm preaching. And I'm also taking that experience to the next level. So I agree with you 100% in regards to that. And us as doctors, we have these cool little tools that we can show things firsthand. So we need to actually utilize these. Just because the trial frame is historic or ancient doesn't mean that we can't utilize it. I'm actually at that point now when I pull out my trial frame, my patients are amazed by it, because some of them are at that age group where they've actually never seen it really. They're just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I get to put that on. Hell yeah, you get to put it on. Try it on and take a look at your cell phone now and see the difference. But when you're able to create that experience and give them a solution, but also show them on something that they use day in and day out, like a cell phone, using a computer analogy, that makes a world of difference in regards to getting that patient to understand, which really goes into probably our next topic at hand, earning trust. If you don't mind touching on that, Steve.
No, and that's so important as well. Just if I can make two quick points on something you said. You and your staff trying out or using the same products you sell is perfect, and it also creates something that I saw you just displaying, probably without even realizing, but is enthusiasm, right? Absolutely. Again, that's another way to connect with people. There's something called enthusiasm contagion, where if somebody else is enthused about something, the other person will actually get enthused about it as well. Trying to sell you something or get you to take an action or do something, even if it's for your benefit, if they're not excited about it, you're going to be much less excited about it as well. So I just wanted to comment on that, because that's one of the other aspects of that chapter on the No Time Like Showtime is you get excited about the products you sell.
Absolutely.
Get excited. And the products you sell are tied in. Now we're starting to come full circle here, because what did we do early on? We asked a lot of questions, and we peeled back the layers to get down to people's true pain points. Now our demonstration to them is directly connected to a solution, to something that they need, right? We're not just winging it anymore. We're not just throwing out a one size fits all solution for everybody, but we're saying, that thing you mentioned before when we were initially talking, let me show you how that's going to help you. Let me and put in contrast, put in enthusiasm, keep the message simple. We didn't get into stories, but there's a lot of ways to connect with people. I'll keep it moving along. Sorry, I got a little.
No, it's all good. Hey, man, we got all the time right there. We're both passionate about this topic. I know we can talk about this for days, but this is very important, because where we're at right now in today's society, this is needed. We need to be able to connect with our patients in a way like we've never connected before. And if we don't understand this, we're going to put our profession at jeopardy. We have to, as a group, as a unit, as a team, as an eye care family, be able to take it to the next level. And with COVID-19, this was the perfect opportunity for us to hit that reset button and start something new and fresh. So I'm all about everything that you're saying. So take your time, get it all out, let the eye care world know what we're talking about and how great they can really make their practice.
So trust, I think most doctors, I think, believe that their patients trust them to a high degree. And I've pushed back on that a little bit. I think inherently we trust built in as doctors. But in 1975, the 80% of people said they had trust in the healthcare profession. In 2018, another study was done, and it's 34%. About that for a second. 34% of people say, only 34% say they have trust in the healthcare system. Now, what would cause that erosion of trust? Well, there's a lot of different things. One is that there's so much competing information out there. Who knows what to believe? We've seen that play out in COVID-19. I mean, the idea of a medical expert giving information and then it's debunked the next day, and then it's somebody else comes out with something new. Somebody else says, well, this is how things are going to be. And we've seen so many different storylines around that. And not only that, but there's so many, like you held up your phone before, so much information out there, you don't know what to believe. And even when people walk into our practices, they might be hearing things for the first time about new technology, about ortho-K, about vision therapy, sports vision, certain, new technology and contacts. And there's going to be some skepticism there. You can't just lean on your degree and to expect that there will be this high level of trust there. So you've got to earn it. So the way I would propose earning trust is I really hit on three things in the book. One is authority, reestablishing your authority. And I tell people it's really up to you, and not nearly enough doctors do it, but go out there and become the OD rock star in your community. You don't have to be a nationally recognized expert on glaucoma, okay, or dry eye or anything else. But you should be working to become your local expert in whatever it is that you want to be known for. And I tell people, go out, call your local newspaper and see, can they interview? Will they interview for an article? Can you start writing a regular column? Get interviewed for podcasts. Start writing your own newsletter. Create videos. Create that buzz. And there's a certain amount of, you'll build that authority. So when people in your community think of, where do I go for dry eye? Where do I go? My kid's, having trouble hitting a baseball. Whatever it is that you want your brand to be known for, that you're known for that. Authority is part perception. Now you got to have the capabilities, which that's the second part, but build that perception in people's minds in your local community that you are the person to go for in whatever, way you've differentiated yourself. Now, perception is reality, but reality is also reality. So you can't just, you can build a brand certainly, but if you can't deliver when people come in to the office, it's not going to be sustainable. So the other part of it is build your capabilities, right? In terms of get your CE, find people that you can mentor under, read as much as you can about the topic, really become the expert. If you want to be a national recognized expert, then go for it. But most of us work in smaller communities. Continually develop your knowledge and expertise in that area. The last one is results. Nothing is more builds more trust than be able to get results. So whether it's technology you've invested in, a specialty, whatever, lenses, the ability to demonstrate results to people immediately builds trust. You ever watch the Shark Tank?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You've seen, most people have seen the Shark Tank, and if we've all seen that the entrepreneurs walk out there, right? And what is it? This is a great lab for what we're talking about. There's immediate skepticism and judgment, right? They go out there and they do their pitch, and then all of a sudden the sharks jump in with their questions, and they're quickly dismissive of what they say, until what's the one thing that gets them to all sit up straight? Results. When they say when they say, what are your numbers? What are your revenues? And they say, we did $1 million last year. Every one of them sits up straight. So take those three together, build your authority in your community. So people think of you, build your capabilities, keep investing in yourself, your knowledge, your expertise, but also whatever it is you do, be able to demonstrate results. If you can do that, trust grows significantly. When someone comes in and sits down in the chair, your recommendations, your prescriptions are going to carry much more weight than if trust isn't established yet.
Yeah, and I think that authority is huge. And I think one thing as eye care professionals is that a lot of optometrists look to get authority the old school way. They don't understand the value of things like social media or being an influencer within their own profession. I mean, patients, especially millennials, they go online and research their physician before they even go into the office, whether it's their reviews, whether it's their social media. I mean, these are touch points that you can get potential new patients down the road, and your existing patients will look at you and share your page and say, "This is my doctor that I was telling you about." I always tell everyone, the whole saying, "It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover." I didn't coin that. My patients coined that. What would happen is my patients would come into my office and they would say, "Dr. Glover, I told my best friend that you're my favorite optometrist, so they're coming to see you," or "They saw you last week." When my team members in the office would say, "Oh yeah, that's everyone's favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover." So it just kind of ran with it, and it's because I branded myself the right way, but the patients understood what was going on with how I practice, and they were able to be the mouth for me and speak to the masses out there. But I was able to establish authority in, number one, more luxury eyewear, more higher end lens technology, and being able to solve problems when it comes to dry eye and just computer vision syndrome. And that's how I attracted a lot of my patients, whether they're millennials or whatever other generation that's out there. But it is key to make sure that you establish authority and be able to touch the different touch points and communicate with the patients in a way that they need to be communicated to.
I think you'll appreciate this too. I talk about a section in the book on actual social media influencers.
Yeah.
And if you study social media influencers, the ones that really have a lot of authority, the ones that have a lot of influence in their area, go look at the content that they're putting out. It makes some kind of an emotional connection, whether that's fear, whether it's humor. They're connecting with people on an emotional level, and they have influence for it. Now, how can I prove they have influence? Because companies pay them a lot of money to advertise their products. I think the highest paid social media influencer, I can't think of her name right now. It's in the book. $25,000 a post she gets paid. It might not be Kendall Jenner. I don't know what that number is, but there's one in particular.
1 million for Kendall Jenner.
Okay. You connect. Okay. We can call that, the extreme. We can call that outrageous. But a lot of people make thousands of dollars by being able to get a lot of attention through what they put out, and it always connects with people on makes some kind of an emotional connection with people, which gives them influence. So we're not usually most ODs aren't going to be famous YouTubers or so there's a few out there, but
I agree. One other thing too, Steve, is I've done a course on social media influencers, and for those that are unfamiliar with it, you have your nano, your micro, your macro, and your mega. With optometrists, it's very key to really get involved, and who we can afford is more of your nano and micro influencers. And the reason why is because, again, as you had mentioned, they connect better. The engagement is higher when you actually look at the statistics. And on top of that, what we have to look at, the social media influencer is now your mom, your dad, your best friend giving you advice, because like you said, they made that intimate connection. And the one thing that we have to realize, being eye care professionals, again, going back to what I stated earlier, we have the retail aspect and the medical aspect. So when you can work with an influencer and they have a following in your local area, and they're able to talk about a computer pair of glasses or a pair of sunglasses, all the people that are following them is going to look at them for their advice and their opinion, and that's going to lead to more people into your practice. And it doesn't cost that much to have these people, because a lot of these folks, especially your nano and micro influencers, which is basically 10,000 or less followers, they don't want much. They may want a free pair of sunglasses or a free eye exam or something, because this is not their 9 to 5. So everything that they're saying is authentic. Unlike your macro and your mega, who are actually doing this for a living, and you'll see their engagement is a lot less or smaller than the other two that I had mentioned. So I mean, this is big business. This can really change your practice, and it can really help enforce your influence before the patient even gets into your office.
Right. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Objections.
Let's talk about
the next one. So even my hope is that if you're doing these other things consistently and you're doing them right, that you'll have fewer objections to begin with. That if you're truly taking a stance of curiosity, that I'm trying to get to know you better, Daryl, and I'm trying to understand not just your superficial problems, how old are your glasses? Are you just here, because you're you're due for a new exam, but really trying to better understand what kind of pain points do you have. I'm peeling back the layers to get down to that. What are your true desire for gain, fear of loss? I'm involving you in the care. I'm making a demonstration that really connects with you, so you can see, you can visualize, you can understand what it is we're talking about. And I'm tying that back to what I learned about you in that discovery phase. And you have trust in me at this point. So now, even if you walked in my door with the anticipation of just getting an exam and then walking with your script to go get a cheap pair of glasses, I got your attention now. At least I got your attention. You trust me. You think I've got your, you believe that I've got your best interest in mind. But even at that, so my hope is that you'll get fewer objections at that point. But you're still going to have people at that point where you do get objections, and how do you deal with those? I'd say two things here. One is, I think it's good to better connect with people, uncover objections during the exam. And in the realm of sales, this is something people really do that's much less effective. Is they make a presentation, a long, lengthy presentation, wait till the end, and then they make this big pitch, when all along the whoever it is that they're trying to sell to was never on board, or they had objections building up. So every once in a while, that's why I mentioned, Daryl, are you on board with what I'm saying? Do you understand? Do you have any questions? It's a chance for you to object at some point, and we can deal with it in that moment. It's better to deal with the smaller objections along the way. And along the way, I'm actually getting your commitment, because if we are on the same page, I'm getting your commitment to move forward. If somebody truly does object, sometimes it's about price, sometimes it's around, can't wait for whatever it is you're ordering. I propose that you give them your full attention and just listen to what they say, empathize with what they're saying initially. Don't interrupt them, make eye contact, just give them, you've done everything you can to uncover their problems, explain, inform, really connect with them. There's still an issue on the table. Yeah. So give them your full attention. Don't interrupt them until they're done talking, and then paraphrase back to them what you just heard. Because it shows I'm listening to you. It shows I'm not dismissing you. I understand what you're saying. Just so I understand this correct, Daryl, let me explain, or let me paraphrase what I thought I heard you say, just so we're on the same page. And after that, so many objections are either misunderstandings or valid objections. So once we've got to that point, it's if there's any misunderstandings, we can clear them up. Say, I understand the issue that you're having, Daryl. I think there was a miscommunication. I should have explained this better. Let me explain something. I think it'll help you better understand. Or maybe you had some questions, and it's an opportunity for me to ask that. Or maybe it's a valid objection. Maybe after all of this, you're just not in a position to move forward with whatever change it is that we're talking about. So it's an opportunity to move forward in a way without completely losing the patient, losing the sale, losing the service, whatever it is. Maybe you say, well, okay, we don't have to do that right now, but let me talk to you about another option that we have that I think will still serve you well. But it's also a chance to restate one last time that desire for gain and fear of loss. And I saw this play out a lot when I was practicing. And I said, Daryl, I completely understand where you're coming from. It's fine. Maybe we could look at that option next year. Let me talk to you about another option that might work for you. But I just want to make sure you understand and restate something. That issue that you were having problems with, that you said when you came in, this solution is not going to fully address that problem. Is that okay with you? If that doesn't, and you get them to pause for a moment and really think it over. And sometimes they'll say, no, I'm good. I don't want to deal with that right now. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, you know what? I should probably just go with option A.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, one thing that I love to do during the exam is have constant dialogue. I'm talking, the patient's talking. We're talking about things that I find when I'm doing the slit lamp exam while I'm still searching and looking through everything. And with that dialogue, that helps to build up the case from the beginning of when the patient was telling me the 2-minute drill, everything about their life. And then they're building up throughout the exam, telling me, I spent a lot of time outside in the sun, and I'm talking touching on pinguecula, pterygiums, and things of that nature. So by the time we're done at the end of the exam, the patient can already tell me what they need, simply because I've brought up all these basic, or not basic, but the main touch points of how we're going to solve the problem, how we're going to get the solution for them to be a better person and be able to see clearer and sharper. So I like to have dialogue during the entire time. Now, when I have patients that come in and they are giving me some kickback or some, or they're trying to have objections, I always tell them straight up, look, this is the deal. I'm just providing resources for you, tools to accommodate your lifestyle, to take your lifestyle to the next level, to take your vision to the next level. And at that point, I'm planting a seed. So even if they don't do it that day, they may come back the next day. They may come back at the end of the year when they have their flex spending. They may do it next year, and they'll start the conversation off in the exam room saying, hey, Dr. Glover, you're right, man. I should have got those computer glasses, man. I've been having these headaches out of this world, and my right here is just killing me, man. And every time I looked at my computer, I kept thinking of you. This year, I'm going to get the computer glasses. And this is real talk. This is stuff that actually happens day in and day out. So, in order to conquer those objections, what I like to do, again, is just have constant dialogue, plant the seed, let the patients know that they have the resources at their fingertips, and just practice what I preach by showing them in the exam room that I experience everything that you experience day in and day out. I always compare myself, or I always tell my patient that I'm no different from you. Whether it's a healthcare professional, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a student, we all do what? We spend time in front of the computer. So a lot of the problems that I experience, they experience. And when they understand that we're the same person and I'm not a higher authority than them, we're able to connect better and we're able to conquer those objections.
Yeah. Well, and they actually want to do, at some point, likability kicks in here too. And that's a whole nother, aspect of it. But, the ability to connect with people makes you immediately likable. And when you like somebody else, you're much more willing to go forward with whatever it is that they're recommending or prescribing for you. And that's not my opinion. That's, something that we need to keep in mind is we are not logical beings. We are not logical beings. We're biological beings, and we respond to things like dopamine and oxytocin and cortisol, these chemicals flowing through our body. And when we actually like the person that we're dealing with, suddenly we actually want to do business with that person. So I think some doctors don't really, not die. I shouldn't pick on doctors. Anybody who's in a position of wanting somebody else to change something doesn't realize the weight of actually going, taking steps to actually be likable for that person. That's where the connection comes back in. But yeah,
Absolutely. So tell me what to do. What is this chapter about? The last chapter of the book.
So that chapter started with a patient who said, "Don't tell me what to do." Basically, I walked in and he had a pack of cigarettes, and I wasn't going to harass him about it, but just through the course of a case history, I brought up the smoking, and he just, he said, "Don't even start in with the cigarettes." And I wasn't going to get anywhere with that, so I just moved on. And as it turned out, he ended up having one of the worst cases of hypertensive retinopathy I ever saw. And after we discovered that, I talked to him. We had to get him in with a retina specialist, and his whole demeanor just changed. And I forget how long, this is a long time ago, but he shows up weeks, maybe longer than that, back at the office in the chair. And the guy who originally presented as kind of a, rough exterior, just was a much more delicate person at that point, and just was much more concerned about its vision, and just started talking about his family. His wife had died, and he didn't want to not be able to see, play with his grandkids and all that. And just that, I remember him looking at me just saying, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
It was just a completely different, experience at that point for both of us. But in that chapter, I really get into an area of behavioral psychology. It's called motivational interviewing. And if you really want to read more on that, it's a really interesting area. There's a book called Motivational Interviewing in Healthcare that one of the main books I researched for that particular chapter.
Okay.
And it really, I think you'd love it because we're on the same page with that. And it really involves uncovering people's own motivations for wanting to do something. This is one of the things that we really need to understand, is that people change. I mean, as much as we want to think that we're this, high superior figure, that whatever we say is going to be acted on by the patient, in reality, most people make decisions and make changes and, take actions for their own motivation.
Yeah.
Motivational interviewing is really just trying to better understand and get people to articulate their own reasons for change. And this would be more for people that are kind of ambivalent or resistant. It goes beyond just your typical objection. This goes to the point of somebody who just it just really needs, we really need them to better understand what it is we're asking them to do, but actually get them to take action. Again, when information is not having the impact you want. So it's things like asking, just one example would be, if I said, Daryl, on let's say you were diabetic and grossly overweight, and just to any patient, and I said, Daryl, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most likely to do it, what's the likelihood that you're going to start exercising and eating better? Let's just say we've got the patient who's a diabetic, uncontrolled blood sugar levels, and the patient said about a 3, and I would say, okay. And there's a point where a healthcare professional might get kind of, we might want to jump in. It's what they call the writing reflex, and tell you, why is that a 3? That should be more important to you. We've talked about this.
Right.
That's only going to push the person further away. Every doctor they have is telling them to lose weight, to stop smoking, to take better care of themselves. So instead of that, and the patient picked a 3, I say, okay, tell me why you didn't pick a 2, which forces you now to articulate your own intrinsic reasons for wanting change. Because you have to stop now and think, I didn't pick a 2 because, there are some things that you've explained to me, and it's going to benefit my health if I were to do it. I want to be able to, I know there's some issues with some bleeding in my eye, and I don't want to lose my vision. I want to be around for my, in good health and be able to see as my, grandkids get older. They start articulating their own reasons. That's the part of the brain we need to get to if we want to enact change in people. So motivational interviewing, which is a really, it's gained a lot of traction in the mental health area, but I think it can be applied to our situations with patients as well. And it's a really interesting science if anyone's interested.
Yeah, and if you don't mind sharing that book again.
It's Motivational Interviewing in Healthcare. And I think there's a subtitle, but I think if you just search that on Stephen Rossner, I think is the author. But if you just search that on Amazon, it should pop up.
Awesome. Well, Steve, man, I could talk to you for days.
Yeah, I know. It flew by.
This is right up my alley. I mean, this is what I'm passionate about. I'm always about just trying to take that patient's experience to the next level. And in order to take it to the next level, we have to prescribe change. And your book has really touched on all these ways to connect. I mean, the connect method is phenomenal, and it can really change the way the dynamic is between the doctor and the patient. But again, this could be any part of life, as you had mentioned before. So this is something that I want all my colleagues to reach out and purchase and implement this into your practice, not just for the physicians in the office, but also for every team member that's there, because we all have to be on the same page. We all are experiencing this at any level in the office. So this is very important for us to be able to do. Steve, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best contact information?
You could reach me, I think, at svargo at idoc.net, idoc.net. If you look to the book, will be up on Amazon tomorrow. The release date's tomorrow. But yeah, any questions, anything that feel free to reach out.
And if they want to purchase the book, can they visit your website as well to be able to get?
Yeah, that link should be there. I'm having that. I just emailed my designer today to change coming soon to a button. So it might be up now. He said I was going to get to it, and but that's drstevevargo.com. Dr. Steve VA. Yeah, there you go. It's up. Yeah. Awesome. But yeah, the link will be there. You can just go to Amazon.
And I always like to ask all our guests to just leave us with just, one piece of advice or a jewel that we could take and share with our friends and our colleagues. What last piece of information or advice do you have for all those that are listening and tuning in today?
Can I quote myself?
Absolutely, man.
One thing that came out of just a sticking point through this whole writing process, and it's turned into sort of my own little mission and passion, is really getting people to change in ways that benefit them. The whole idea that we can just spread information and expect that to make the world a better place. It's a start, but we really need to better understand how do we connect with people to get them to change. And I use a lot of quotes in the book, and actually one that meant a lot to me is, if nothing changes, did you really make an impact?
Mm.
And I think we've got to really consider that if, as doctors, if you got into this profession to want to help people, to really want to change people's lives for the better, and you don't feel like they're really changing, not as often as you would like it to, then I think we really need to change our approach. It has to start with us. But again, if nothing changes, if people just hear your recommendations, advice, but nothing changes, did you really make an impact?
Yeah, I love it. Friends and family, it's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. And today we had the pleasure of hanging out with Dr. Steve Vargo. Make sure you check out the book, hit up his website. If you have any questions, email him because he's the man that knows it all. And look forward to hanging out with you guys on the next live stream and episode, all right? Talk to you later. Have a great one. Stay blessed, healthy, and positive. Peace. All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the D-Focus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And if it did, be sure to give us 5 stars. And make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you named it. And our handle is at D-Focus Media on all platforms. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.